Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the October 19th meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Krista, are we in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act?
Yes, sir, we are.
Could you please take the roll call?
Certainly. Mayor McCann.
Present.
Mr. Harkins.
Here.
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Ames.
Here.
Mrs. Becker.
Here.
Mr. Lennox. Mr. Stanford.
Here.
All present, sir.
Thank you very much. Will you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands,
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty is for all.
Today's invocation will be given by Father Chris Gardner. Father,
Yes, I'm here.
would you please give the invocation, sir?
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your blessing, guidance, wisdom, and support as we gather together today to begin this meeting. We pray for guidance in the matters at hand and ask that you would clearly show us how to conduct our work with a spirit of joy and enthusiasm. Help us to work together and encourage each other to excellence. Help us engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of the community. I ask that you bless each and every one here today in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Father Chris.
Thank you.
Okay. Our approval of the agenda.
Move for approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you very much. Approval of the minutes of the October 5th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your right hand again. Thank you. Report of the town manager.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. In terms of just items of interest for me, the most important and only item I want to make sure that we're all tracking and understand is that this Thursday, October 21st at 9 a.m., Town Council will hold their follow-up meeting to the strategic plan retreat or workshop you had early in the year, and we'll have a strategic planning council workshop. So looking forward to that, looking forward to being with you. Again, 9 a.m., October 21, this Thursday. And then citizens may view the workshop. It will be a live recording. View the workshop, of course, on our Hilton Head Island Facebook page, on our Town of Hilton Head Island website, the Beaufort County channel, Hargrave Channel 9, and Spectrum Channel 1304. So Hargrave Channel 9, Spectrum Channel 1304. And if you have any questions as members of the community, please contact our town clerk ahead of time or leading up to this workshop. With that, I will ask Jennifer Ray, our Capital Improvement Program Manager, to give a quarterly update on CIP. So we will start bringing quarterly updates to Town Council just in this setting to let you all hear all the great things Jen's working on. At this time, Jen can give good updates on really the projects, the highest priority projects, the process that she's working. And it also gives Jen some time to celebrate and really brag about all the great things she's doing. So Jen, with that, hello.
Thank you, Mark. At this point, I'm going to share my screen. I have a very brief presentation for you. Okay, can you see the report here?
Yes.
Great, thank you. As Mark said, I'm Jennifer Ray. I'm the Capital Program Manager for the Town of Hilton Head Island, and I'm here to provide our first quarterly report for the town's capital improvements program. We have some really big shoes here within CIP, and we know we will never fill them, but we're very excited about this opportunity to collaborate with an amazing team here at the town. These quarterly reports are going to provide some transparency and accountability and just let y'all and the members of our community know what is going on within the program Each report will include information about scope, schedule, and budget, as well as some other highlights from our CIP team. Our team built on the success and the graphic style from our plan and the strategic plan that you're going to review later this week. I hope you recognize some of this in our branding, the logo and categories and colors that we're going to use throughout the program will make it really easy for anyone to recognize a project as being part of the town's capital improvements program and bring consistency to the program as well. Another thing that we wanted to do is to better identify and provide information about the program. So we will be adding some small signs similar to the size of the signs that we use for zoning, rezonings, to identify projects that are in a planning phase, similar to these shown. Here's an example of a future park project and a future pathway project. We're also adding some kiosk in select locations. This one is brand new, has not been stained yet, not quite finished, but just wanted to eager to show you an example of how we will use those for projects where there's already some activity in the area. For instance, this one is at the Mid-Island track, so that people that are already there engaging with the site will be able to follow along, get notices of upcoming meetings or progress as projects continue. The keys for the management of any project really are called the golden triangle. So it's cost, scope, and time. And in all of our reports, we'll focus on those in terms of the scope, the schedule, and the budget. I'm just going to hit the highlights here in this presentation because the report was in your packet and is also on our website. When it comes with budget, we have looked at this table that shows you the balance per category from the budget that you approved for July 1, the amount expended to date, the amount that's encumbered, and you all know that that means we have a contract for it or a purchase order to buy something, and then the project budget balance. You might look at it and say there's not much being spent yet. That usually really ramps up in quarter 2 and 3 and 4 of the fiscal year. But the good news is nothing is over budget. So we're in good stead right now for the end of the first quarter of our fiscal year. When it comes to project schedules, I'll show you an example on the dashboard in just a minute, but this table really shows you that we can't start every project at the beginning of the quarter. So July 1, we can't start $28 million of projects, but we've mapped out throughout the course of the fiscal year projects and when we anticipate them starting. On the color coding is like I showed you at the beginning based on the category, but you can see every project and its anticipated timeline. Obviously, everything about schedules is subject to change, but this is our best estimate of where we're going to be putting our resources in time and dollars throughout the year. Now, the big news here, it all comes together on our website and dashboard. Can you see, did that flip to the website?
No, it did not.
Okay, so let me stop sharing and I'm going to share again so I can pick that. We practiced earlier, but sometimes technology gets the best of us. Okay, you seeing it now?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So this is on our town website. It will be live this week. When you come from the homepage into major initiatives, you can see a page dedicated to the capital improvements program. This page has been here since the website was redesigned and launched earlier this year, but we've really built it out in the past week with additional information. As I scroll down, you can see there's a section with frequently asked questions, lots of things like how does a project get to become a CIP project? Where can I get more information? How can I report issues and just learn more, be part of the process? We have opportunities to comment. Maybe you have a question about a project and you want to go in and put that in or give us some feedback. Maybe you have an idea for a new project that we haven't thought of and you want to provide that. There are opportunities to do all that right here on the town's hub of CIP. We also have updates by category, and I'm just going to click in one to give you an idea. You can see the big keys here. PA is pathways. And when I click on that, it takes you to a page dedicated to pathways. It shows you the current projects included in this year's program, the total funding, what those projects are. As we move forward, there could be additional information loaded in here about the status of those projects. And that's the same for every category throughout the program. This budget, you've seen this was on here originally, and then resources to go back for more data. Then here's the big news, the dashboard. Right here, if you click on this, this is going to give you the status of all of our projects. There is so much information in here. You can drill down as far as you want. This is not just for staff, but it's public facing. So our town council, y'all and your constituents, members of the community can get in here and drill down and get a lot of information. On the left, you can filter projects by type, by phase, by funding source. There are all numbers of ways you can click on, and the map and the project list will change based on what you click on. Also, you can go down here, like I said, by funding source. You could pick everything that is funded through hospitality tax or stormwater fees, and the numbers and the map change depending on what we're picking. The map in the middle is responsive. So when I'm zoomed out to the whole island, you see all of the projects listed. But as I zoom in, the numbers change because it focuses on that portion that we're highlighting. I'm just going to give you an example here. I'm going to pick the parks category and pick one project. I'm going to pick the Mid-Island Initiative area. I'm the project manager for that project, so it's an easy one for me to show off for you. You can see the map automatically zoomed in to that area, and on the right, this dashboard updated. Within each project, there will be lots of information that you can dig into here. One is a project sheet. We've created a project sheet for every project within this year's program. It will explain the scope of the project. It tells you the zoning, the budget, a map of where it is. As you scroll to the second page, it breaks down the budget further. The snapshot talks about performance measures. That's something you all have talked about a lot. How do we know if we're doing the right thing? We'll know when we finish this. We will have approval of the design, completed part design, and the adoption of the redevelopment framework, and then a few photos there. So that's one element within that dashboard that talks about the scope. Another one is the status report. This is for the period that ended September 1st or September 30th, excuse me. You can see we've added in the milestones that have happened during that quarter, and there's room to add it for every quarter. And then it has a budget snapshot specific to that project. So you can see what we've expended, encumbered, and what's remaining. The third piece that's on here right now is also a project schedule. It's so important to understand the schedule of the project, and this just shows you our best estimate at this point, and working with our consultants on this project, when we think we will be hitting the different phases throughout the project. So this is just one example. You can drill through this information about all of our different projects. They will be updated as we go. The schedules are built out farther than others, just based on the stage that they're in, but all of this information will shortly be here, and this will be up for anyone to be able to drill down and get all the information you could possibly want about capital improvements program at the town. That concludes my report. I know that was brief, and I appreciate the opportunity to give you that report and the overview of what we're working on. I would be remiss if I didn't give some shout outs. I have an amazing team that I work with. Matt Carey and Taylor Ladd and Renee Phillips really took this dashboard and made it amazing. And then Renee integrated it into the website and built out that hub. Eric has taken the lead on the kiosk. All of our project managers have been involved in updating their status reports and project sheets and get me information on time. And I'm the one that gets to come and share the good news with y'all. So thank you for that opportunity. I will be back again in a few more months.
Jennifer, excellent report. This is magnificent. This is just magnificent.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that.
Great. I'll add a couple words. The things that are jumping out to me that I'm so super excited about is that we have a transparent and accountable program and such a well-planned program and flexible. We are dedicated to focusing on scope, schedule, and budget. Those three things. Every time I meet with Jen, that's what I hear about. And Jen's definitely hit the ground running. We could go on and on about Jen and your great team. But you've hit the ground running with great leadership. More to come, Mayor and Council and community, but we will keep those projects updated, web-based along the way. So thanks again, Jen.
Thank you.
Next, Mr. Yates, I saw you on there. There you are, sir. A quarterly update of the Gulligeechi Land and Cultural Preservation Project. In past months, you have seen a work plan. Chris has been the interim director in community development for some time now, a few months, couple months. And I'm excited to have Chris back to provide an update on this topic. So with that, Chris.
Just bear with me 1 second, trying to get this. Okay. Y'all see that screen?
No.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that. How about that? Is that working?
Looks like it's trying on mine. There it is on mine.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Orlando, Mayor McCann, and members of Town Council. My name is Chris Yates, and I'm the Interim Director of Community Development. This is an update on the status of the 16 top priority recommendations from the Gulligeechi Cultural Preservation Project report. As you can see on page 2 of the report, we've made significant progress in completing the top 16 priority projects. I want to review our accomplishments since the last update on August 19th. Regarding priority recommendation 2, family compound and family subdivision amendments, staff is completing a communication plan to make the community aware of amendments and to explain how families could use them to preserve their property. The first part of the communication plan is to host community education programs on the topic. On September 30th, staff hosted a community education program on family compounds and family subdivisions at the Squire Pope Community Park. The event was well attended and staff received requests for additional information from more than a dozen attendees. Another education program on family compounds and family subdivisions is scheduled for tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m. at the Squire Pope Community Park. Staff is publicizing these events in news releases and an email blast to community organizations, churches, and families. Another aspect of the communication plan is to create a Gullah-focused e-newsletter. The town will publish the e-newsletter 3 times a year beginning in January 2022. The first edition of the newsletter will include an article on family compounds and family subdivisions. Staff is also developing a series of videos on topics related to the priority projects and Gullah culture. The videos will be hosted on the town's YouTube channel. The first video in the series will be about family compounds and family subdivisions. The communication plan will be completed this winter, and it's already very effective. More than 30 people attended the first community education program. Staff is following up with those who asked for more information at the event to answer their questions and provide assistance. 6 families are discussing with staff the possibility of developing a family compound or family subdivision on their property. The Community Education Program on family compounds and family subdivisions is part of the Community Engagement Program. The purpose of the program is to host educational meetings and workshops on issues that impact Gullah residents. Staff has a list of upcoming programs. The topics range from history and culture to CIP projects to addressing. Staff is asking the community for their input on other topics of interest to them. These events will be held at locations throughout the island on different days and times to allow as many people as possible to participate. Staff is publicizing these events through news releases, emails to community organizations, and in social media posts. Staff is taking advantage of these programs to further connect to the community and make sure people are aware of the resources the town can provide. Staff is developing a program to educate town officials, staff, board and commission members on Gullah history and culture and development standards. The program will provide a better understanding of the island's Gullah history and culture to establish effective communication and service. An orientation on Gullah history and culture will be held quarterly for new staff members and newly elected and appointed officials. Staff is developing the curriculum for the orientation sessions. Staff will present the curriculum to the Gullah Task Force for review. The draft curriculum will be included in the next Town Council update. Staff will also schedule educational opportunities throughout the year. These could include tours of Gullah sites, educational sessions with community leaders, and training on related development standards. For example, in September, planning staff attended a training session on the recently approved family compound and family subdivision amendments. We're excited to present to you a fuller picture of this program in our next update. Staff is maintaining and expanding connections with all segments of the Gullah community. These partnerships are paying off. For example, staff coordinated with area organizations such as Low Country Gullah and the Pan-African Network to monitor Gullah-owned properties with delinquent property taxes. We have excellent news. The county delinquent property tax sale was held on October 4th, and this year, no Gullah-owned properties were auctioned off. This success is a credit to the tremendous work of Luana Graves Sellers with Low Country Gullah and Ms. Teresa White with the Pan-African Network. We are proud to partner with those organizations in this important work. Staff is also proud to announce the launch of the Historic Neighborhoods Permitting and Design Studio. The Permitting and Design Studio is dedicated to providing assistance to property and business owners in the historic neighborhoods. The town announced the launch with a news release and social media post. It is important to note that the Permitting and Design Studio will provide site design services and business license assistance, which is in addition to the development assistance the Historic Neighborhood Preservation Administrator has been providing. Since that position began, Dr. DuBose has provided assistance to individuals and families on a variety of development issues, including subdivisions, access easements, mobile home placements, building permits, addressing, and many others. For example, Dr. DuBose and town staff are currently assisting approximately 20 individuals and families in historic neighborhoods with these types of issues. The Permitting and Design Studio will raise awareness of these services and build stronger connections between the town, its residents, and business owners in historic neighborhoods. As you can see, staff is advancing the priority recommendations while providing development assistance to individuals and families in historic neighborhoods. Staff is balancing these larger projects with the immediate need of individuals and families. In summary, since the August 19th update, staff redesigned the status report, advanced the top priority projects, hosted the first community education program, is developing a curriculum to educate elected and appointed officials and town staff on Gullah history and culture, coordinated with Beaufort County and community organizations to prevent the loss of Gullah-owned property at the tax sale, and we launched a historic neighborhood permitting and design studio to assist individuals and families with a variety of developmental projects, including family compounds and family subdivisions. Are there any questions I can answer?
Chris, great report and a wonderful update. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Next, if Mr. Greenway is close by, I'm going to take the liberty and privilege to move him up, which I should have done to begin with. Presentation on our Regional Housing Trust Fund by Mr. Eric Greenway, our Beaufort County Administrator. If Eric, you're on.
I am here. Thank you very much.
Your floor, sir.
It's always a pleasure. I'm going to try to share my screen here. I've got so many computer monitors in front of me. I may not get the right one on the first try, but we'll keep going until I get it right. So this is where I need Jennifer Ray's assistance. So do you all see that screen?
We can see it, Eric.
All right, thank you. So essentially what I'm doing here today is presenting to you all the Regional Housing Trust Fund, which was a initiative by the Soloco board here in the southern portion of Beaufort County. And as a result of some presentations that I did a few years ago, they ended up appointing a subcommittee that Jennifer Ray from the town of Hilton Head Island and various people, Hardyville and Jasper County served on. And we recommended that we go out and hire a consultant to put together a framework for implementing a regional housing trust fund. What I'm doing right now through the months of September, October, and into November is I'm going around and presenting the results of that study to all of the jurisdictions. I've presented this to Yemassee, to City of Beaufort, to Hardyville, and now you all are the fourth jurisdiction to receive the presentation. So hopefully I'm getting better and quicker. The bad news about this presentation is that it's 60 something slides. The good news is that I'm only going to do about 20 today. So there are other parts to this, but I won't be going through all of those today. So having said that, I'm going to hop in here. Please feel free to stop me if you have any questions for me as I go through. So these are all the jurisdictions that provided the funding to hire the consultant. We had 8 various jurisdictions, and all of these jurisdictions appointed 2 people to serve on a steering committee that worked with the consultant that basically resulted in a summary of the a full report, but I'm going over the summary of that full report with you all today. We did have all the jurisdictions participate. The purpose of the study was to identify revenue sources, what types of revenue sources can provide a sustainable ongoing revenue source for the Regional Housing Trust Fund, how the funds will be used, what projects should they be provided for, and what are the priorities of the Regional Housing Trust Fund, and then also fund governance and partnerships. How will the governance of the fund work? Will there be a board of directors, and then how will they go about staffing and making up the board, and then finding partnerships with that. And then the last part that I will not spend a lot of time on today will be the project criteria as to what does the Regional Housing Trust Fund consider affordable and what types of projects are eligible for funding. That'll come beyond and further into the development of the trust fund. Today, going through the framework for setting it up with the governance and the funding options that have been recommended by the study. What is a housing trust fund? It's basically designed to facilitate the preservation and provision for affordable workforce housing. This is a little different than what we're doing here, is a little different than what you typically refer to as subsidized housing. We're not talking about that. We're talking about workforce housing. And this fund will be predominantly designed to meet that need in this region here, Beaufort and Jasper County, and the jurisdictions within the two counties. It is generally supported by the public sector to fill in gaps in the housing supply. That's something I do not have to tell you all about. You all probably deal with it more than any jurisdiction in the region, but it is certainly an important and significant issue for all jurisdictions within Beaufort and Jasper County at this time. And if we don't address it soon, it's going to continue to grow, and it's going to eventually start having a major negative, more significant impact on our economy here in Beaufort County. So there were some priorities established. Priority number one was to provide accessible, affordable housing to the region to support the workforce and the service economy, as well as others with high housing cost burdens. You can see the top sectors there and the annual mean wage of those sectors. And then you can see that Beaufort County requires a household income of about $48,000 in order to afford a median gross rent. Now, that is not to say that there is actually product out there for someone to actually rent a home if they're making $48,000. I think there's a significant shortage in that. I did some research today, just looking at rents on Hilton Head Island. For anything that's 2-bedroom or above, you're looking at $2,000 to $2,000 or above, even if you can find anything on the island to rent, which there isn't a lot of that. So for that amount of money, that you wouldn't be able to afford to pay that type of rent. And mortgages, of course, on the island would be much, much higher. No single family dwellings that I saw today were listed for rent on the island. Priority number two is overcoming barriers to affordable development, such as financial gaps and land availability. Those are two of the primary things that we've heard: the gap financing for developers, land availability, the construction of infrastructure such as utilities, and then paying the impact fees that are necessary in order to bring the connections to those utilities, and paying transportation, parks and rec, library fees, and things like that. The Regional Housing Trust Fund can help close the financing gaps related to infrastructure and the other things that are required as a result of providing workforce housing and housing in general. So that's going to be priority number two. Priority number three is ensuring a regional approach for affordable housing that addresses the needs of each jurisdiction while meeting important strategic goals for the housing location. Basically, it's been decided and recommended by the study, and so LOCO has voted to say that the board should include appointed representatives from all jurisdictions, not just contributing jurisdiction. The funds will be used to finance projects in the region based on whether the affordable housing project seeking financing meets the regional housing project criteria. And then the third point is that once this affordable housing comes online for workforce, that all jurisdictions are likely to see an economic benefit from the Regional Housing Trust Fund as a result of that. So I think Jennifer Ray might have been the person that coined this phrase that I've used a lot from her. It's a workforce housing, and the affordable housing issue here is a regional problem that requires a regional solution, and it goes beyond any individual jurisdictional boundaries for us to achieve what we need to achieve here in order to solve this significant issue for our area. And then priorities 4 and 5. Priority 4, you must understand the tools and resources available to the Housing Trust Fund through various state laws and regulations. And then priority 5, identifying a stable and reliable dedicated revenue source. We have to, of course, always stay in compliance with state law and the regulations on these things. And then priority number 5 is if we don't have a dedicated revenue source for the Regional Housing Trust Fund, then it's not going to be able to provide a significant impact, even if it's able to survive. If it will probably just limp along without a sustainable, reliable revenue source to keep it healthy and viable into the future. Anyone have any questions about those priorities? Okay. And then some objectives were developed by the steering committee and the consultants. Mostly we're going to be focusing on households at or below 60% of area and median income. That would be someone that's with our annual median income at $68,400 per year. Someone making 60% of that, a family of 4, would be bringing in right around $41,000 a year. 80% AMI would be $55,000 per year. So the 41, that equates to a rent of about $1,026 a month. And there's not many places in Beaufort County, and particularly there would probably be no places on the island where you could rent for a family at that rate. So that means that a lot of our workforce is living outside of the jurisdiction where they work, and some of them are traveling a long distance to get to work. The second objective was to provide workforce housing for the growing Beaufort Jasper economy. And then the third one is to maintain financial stability and build wealth for those individuals by reducing the amount of money they must spend on housing and transportation. That is a very difficult thing for folks in our jurisdiction when they have to spend more than 30% of their income on housing and trying to get to and from work. It hampers their quality of life. It impacts other things that they're able to do for their families. So it's something we need to do our best to try to solve. And then the fourth point, strengthen relationships, build trust, and engage partners and stakeholders, ensuring an organized and collaborative approach to regional housing challenges. That speaks for itself. I won't elaborate any more on that. This is, again, going back to the phrase of a regional problem that requires a regional solution. We have to blur the jurisdictional lines on solving this problem and work together and trust each other and partner with each other in order to solve this problem. And then increase awareness of existing and new financial products that serve Beaufort and Jasper community. And then finally, leverage outside funding from banks, corporations, philanthropic institutions, federal, state, and local governments. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Greenway set up their trust fund, and they turned about $2 million investment to seed the trust fund and use that money to leverage about $43 million in additional monies once they did their trust fund and got it organized and formulated. So it could be a very big benefit to the region if we're able to do half of that here in Beaufort and Jasper counties. So this is a busy chart that's got a lot of boxes on it with a bunch of arrows and things like that. And basically the significance of this is that there's going to be a lot of things that we have to do over the next 3 years. Many of those things are going to be occurring while other things are in process and being finished and being started, and all of those things, much to the presentation that you saw from Ms. Ray earlier with regards to capital projects. It's going to be the same with this, is that there's going to be a lot of things going on simultaneously here and a lot of work that has to be done while other things are kicking up and getting moving and getting completed through the process. This is the schedule for the rest of this year and into the next year. So August, the proposal and implementation plan was presented to SoLoco and was adopted. What I'm doing right now is going around trying to get a commitment of public funding from each jurisdiction. And I'm going to go into that next part of my presentation here. Then the third thing we will do is formalize philanthropic partnerships. That will conclude the presentation today. Once we get to that part, staffing a new organization, we'll talk about that a little bit. And then the public launch of accepting applications will be at the end of next year. So by the fourth quarter of 2022, we hope to have all of this in place and start accepting projects, applications, so we can start doing projects. So we've got a lot of work to do within the next 13, 14 months. And a lot of things have to happen in order for us to meet that deadline. So how do we move on from that point? First of all, we have to pass local funding ordinances. The Local Housing Trust Fund Enabling Act, the William C. Mesher Act, gives local governments authority to jointly form a regional housing trust fund by ordinance, but the ordinance must establish financing for the regional housing trust fund. So you have to have some sort of financing mechanism for the regional trust fund in order to meet that statute. What we're asking for as a committee and the consultant is that each jurisdiction allocate 3% of their individual ARPA allocations to the regional housing trust fund in year one. I'm going to show those amounts here on the next slide or two. Ideally, these would come from state and local recovery pool of ARPA funds, which is the most flexible pool and will allow more streamlined financing of the regional housing trust fund. So we can use the ARPA money for seeding the trust fund, as long as we're using those state and local recovery pool funds. And then after that, we would like to secure a total annual contribution of $500,000 from participating jurisdictions based on the population share in years 2 and 3 and ongoing from there. If we do that and we follow the funding matrix that I'm getting ready to show you, we can accumulate over $7 million for the fund by year 10. And these are basically the funding by jurisdictions here. You can see year one, Hilton Head Island would be, we would ask that you all contribute $157,000 to the fund for year one. And then you see your allocation moving forward years 2 through years 10 as that increases through years 2 through 10. And this is by jurisdiction. I'm gonna pause again and ask if there's any questions about anything I've gone over thus far. Okay, that's great. The next step will be to create a long-term strategy of securing a dedicated revenue source from participating jurisdictions. So that's what we're doing right now, is having these discussions so that we can begin to formulate and finalize those agreements so that we can get the revenue sources pinned down so that we can start the Regional Housing Trust Fund and hiring staff, finding office space if necessary, and getting a team up and running on starting to accept applications. And then in addition to that, while that's ongoing and we're doing that, we also have to have conversations with philanthropic and corporate partners. I have a meeting coming up soon with some of these groups, partners that are interested in funding the Regional Housing Trust Fund, the United Way, the Community Foundation, and other entities like that will be in that meeting, and I will be going through this with them and soliciting their participation in the Housing Trust Fund in addition to what we're doing with each individual jurisdiction. And then we're also going to identify opportunities to leverage other non-public funds, banks and corporate dollars. Again, banks are eligible for Community Reinvestment Act credits when they make investments in low and moderate income communities. And then corporations can receive an income tax, bank tax, or insurance premium tax credit through the South Carolina Community Development Credit by making investments into community development corporations and financial institutions like community development financial entities. So those are big benefits to both the banks and to corporations, especially those who are having a housing crisis for their employees. If they invest in this, I think it will help them be able to be more attractive for their employees, because there will be a pool of housing where their employees can work, hopefully closer to the places of work. So step 2, develop the organization. What does that look like? It looks like this. First of all, we need to set up the board structure. And in August, SOLOCO voted unanimously that each participating jurisdiction would appoint 1 board member per jurisdiction, regardless of their ability to fund their portion of the Housing Trust Fund. Again, going back to that theme that we've had throughout the subcommittee's presentation here, regional problem requires a regional solution. It really does not matter that someone may or may not participate. They still may be able to benefit from the development of a regional housing trust fund and the advantages that that will bring to Beaufort and Jasper County as a result of having that tool in our toolbox for providing workforce and affordable housing. And then establish the Regional Housing Trust Fund as a 501c3 organization. It will require 1 to 2 staff members in years 1 through 3 to manage the fund's day-to-day operations. That staff will consist of an executive director and a project manager. And the next thing here is a budget, sample budget that was created by the consultant, that in year 1, we're going to need about $256,000, year 2, about $261,000, year 3, about $268,000 as we move through. Hopefully, though, we would be able to partner with another organization. There's organizations out there that are already set up to operate regional housing trust funds. And I have a meeting coming up on that as well, to talk to a group that already does this, and they run the one in Greenville, and they're interested in running the one here. And if we can take advantage of their experience and their infrastructure, then I think that helps kickstart us and get us off to a great start here in the Low Country with this Regional Housing Trust Fund. And then we're, as I talked about earlier, continuing seeking that corporate and philanthropic support for the Regional House Trust Fund, and then identifying a group to work with, like the Coastal Community Foundation, the Community Foundation of Low Country, and other potential funders for implementation of the Regional Housing Trust Fund. The Coastal Community Foundation, we're already working with them on some other things here in Beaufort. And then the Community Foundation of the Low Country, I'm going up in a couple of weeks with the city of Beaufort to meet with them on some other initiatives that they have going on in the Charleston area as well. That concludes my presentation. I'll be glad to answer any questions you all have about it. And I'll leave that up on my screen for you all in case I have to slide back to any slides. So I know that was quick, and I hope it was not too boring.
Well, it definitely wasn't boring, Eric. Thank you for your time and for the in-depth assessment of this. Lots to think about. I know that I'm not asking town council whatsoever tonight for a vote, but I do appreciate that you outlined the proposal, provided it to us, and I'll get back in touch with you soon.
That sounds good. Yeah, I just so you all know, I sent the full report and the presentation to Krista earlier today in case you would want to spend your time at night before you go to sleep reading through that. So anyway.
Well, I'll rewatch the video if I can't sleep though, Eric. I would like at this time to respectfully ask town council members while you're on the meeting with us if they have any questions directly for you. So I'll defer that to the mayor to go through the council members.
Mr. Brown.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Greenway, for the presentation. Yeah, appreciate the full slideshow through Krista. That'd be great. I've got a couple questions. If you've got the answers, fine. If I can find them in the other 40 pages of slideshow, then just let me know. I guess the first one, you mentioned that you had done a quick study before today's meeting on some of the rents on Hilton Head. Does that study include rents on Hilton Head and other jurisdictions?
No, today, since I was presenting to you all, I just did a quick look to see what I could find for rent on the island itself. There, again, region-wide, or at least in Beaufort County, it's very difficult for individuals making that between 60 and 80% of AMI to find places for them to rent or to purchase here in the county. So what that does is it forces them to have to go beyond the border of Beaufort County into Hampton and Allendale County, particularly if they're working in the service sectors of our economy, to find housing in a lot of cases. So,
okay. Yeah, I think that's important to the conversation. We all can make the assumption that as we go back westward off of Hilton Head, that the rents will start to decline. But some data behind that will definitely be worthy of us making a decision here.
Yeah.
The other question I had was, has there been some historical study that would provide us data in terms of the actual workforce by jurisdiction? I know you've got it in that presentation by, I think it was food and beverage and administrative support and that sort of thing, but is there a breakdown by jurisdiction?
There is a breakdown by jurisdiction. I don't think it's in the full report, but I'll be glad to provide that to Krista so she can get that out to you.
Yeah, and do you know by chance if that's over a certain period of time to show if there's been increase or decrease by jurisdiction? I'm saying maybe a 5-year look back.
I don't know, but I will do my best to get the latest data set to you all and,
okay.
and do some comparisons on that for you.
All right. And, according to the chart that showed our initial contribution, I think it was a $7 million countywide and a little bit over 1 million from us here on Hilton Head. This is a big county, right? A very big county. And, Hilton Head represents geographically a small portion of that. But I'm asking these questions because I want it to be relative as to our contribution. And then even more so, it'd be really relative as to our return on our investment. If there's going to be an increase of the workforce by going down this route, well, what does that look like on Hilton Head? I think that's important for us moving forward. At this point, according to priority number 3, I think the point was that jurisdictions will likely to benefit from this effort. That's not very convincing in my mind. I'd like to see that firmed up a bit more. So those are my questions and comments. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Ms. Becker?
Thank you. A couple of things have already been confirmed for me. I just wanted to make sure that we're able to get that full document. I look forward to reading it and teasing out where my questions will come from specifically. And also the other piece is prior to us taking a vote, there will be an opportunity. I want to confirm that there will be an opportunity for us to have a larger discussion and not just a review of the documents and a vote, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, that's all I need to know now.
Any other question, Mr. Stanford?
Thank you. Eric, thank you for a very detailed report on a subject that we all need to know more about. How were the proposed contributions from the various jurisdictions determined?
It was determined based on the amount of ARPA funding they were receiving through this latest round. If you go, I exited out of that, but the Bluffton numbers are way low for their population. So we're
Yes.
working through that right now. It shows that Bluffton's contribution would be about $56,000 in that initial payment. And you are at, over 100K. So that all needs to be balanced out with the other jurisdictions. I'm not really worried about the Beaufort County allocation of over of $1.1 million. So not really concerned about that. So we've got to have that discussion with Bluffton to see what they're doing. Apparently it goes to entitlement versus non-entitlement jurisdictions that resulted in that number of 3% being way low for Bluffton as compared to their population. So that has to be worked on and balanced out in the study before we actually come back for an official funding request.
Okay, so it's a work in progress and
Yes.
you expect some adjustments in that. That's good. Secondly, I'm interested in the philosophy behind giving a vote to a community that does not make a contribution to the fund. I can understand that they would have an interest in this, but it seems to me that having a full vote gives them an awful lot of power without having to make a contribution.
Yeah, and I certainly understand that thinking. Again, it's just us trying to align the philosophy of the SOLOCO subcommittee and the SOLOCO approval in that people would, hopefully we're going to have 100% participation. Let me first of all say that from all the jurisdictions. But
Sure.
if we don't, we don't want anyone to feel like, hey, we're not going to get the benefit of this of this workforce housing since we are not able or can't afford to participate in the trust fund. So I think SOLOCO board wanted to make it clear that we are more about this being an equitable governance across the board through the region of the Regional Housing Trust Fund, and not just based on those folks that feel that they are able to make a contribution to it. I don't know if that answers your question, Councilmember Stanford, but that's kind of the philosophy and thinking behind it is to build trust and partnerships for the board to get the trust fund off on sound footing.
I understand that philosophy, but it's also difficult to understand how you get a benefit without paying the price. And so that's going to draw some more discussion, I think, as we move forward. But thank you for your report. That's my comment.
Mr. Ames?
Thank you. Eric, you've been doing a yeoman's job on this one for a long time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
There's really too much information to have any salient questions or questions that are really well thought out. But there are a couple of things that come to my mind. The first, though, that I believe Hilton Head needs affordable or workforce housing on the island. So that's where I begin.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if the differential cost of constructing a project will impact its location, its geographic location. The benefit of building something where construction costs are probably 30% less than on Hilton Head would begin to suggest that Hilton Head would be at a disadvantage. If Hilton Head is at a disadvantage there, is it correspondingly benefited by transportation contributions within this regional housing trust? Or is there a link to transportation funding that may equalize that formula that I just suggested? You don't have to answer that at this time, but those are things that probably are going to be important to Hilton Head. And another question, is the board going to have, the board that is created, a member from each jurisdiction, is that board going to have the responsibility to create the bylaws, the initial policies and funding equations and so on?
It is going to have the authority to do that, but I would not be supportive of them doing that in a vacuum without it being presented first to all the respective elected bodies that are participating in that. So once they came up with that, I would propose that we submit those and come before each individual council and present that material to you as a body so that you all can say, yeah, we like that, or we think that's the right approach, or not, before they actually officially set.
I guess it would be our expectation that the council member representing Hilton Head would take to those initial meetings sort of the principles of participation from Hilton Head.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much, Eric. We really appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, sir.
Always a pleasure. Thank y'all very much. Take care.
Next topic, status update on the relocation of manufactured homes from Rollers Trailer Park. As it reads on the agenda, this is a residential, small little neighborhood on Marshland Road. And I have asked Chris Yates, who I believe will also work with Jamie Lopko. Hello, Jamie, I see you on there now, to provide a quick overview. It was a rezoning, as we know, application made months ago on behalf of a potential landowner. And that project has seen its time here at staff as well as Planning Commission. And most recently, staff and Planning Commission have recommended denial. I believe the applicant on the rezoning application has withdrew that application for the time being. And I know Ms. Lopko has been working closely as a planner and also a facilitator of the neighborhood meetings. And so, Jamie, really appreciate your ownership, really appreciate your professionalism as you're working on a rezoning, but it's not just a rezoning to us, it's a small neighborhood with a lot of families. So with that, I know that the request was to provide an update on that project, not so much just from a zoning perspective, but on the property and neighborhood as well. So with that, Ms. Jamie.
Thank you, Mr. Orlando. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. As Mark said, this was a rezoning application, has been withdrawn. The majority of the property that was the subject of this rezoning is owned by Dr. Singh. And he has indicated that regardless of the rezoning application, he does intend to redevelop the properties and has discontinued all leases, and all the families who are currently on the properties are renting month to month. And so I visited the site, and basically there are 49 homes that would be impacted if the total of the site was redeveloped. But 43 of those 49 homes are located on Dr. Singh's property, so they will be impacted regardless of the rezoning. There was a meeting on September 13th that staff worked with Deepwell and the Low Country Immigration Coalition to meet with the families who are impacted in this area. And we wanted to basically bring them in, make sure they understood what was happening and that they understood the costs associated with having to relocate their homes and the timeline that they have to help prepare themselves for this. The meeting was very well attended. 30 of the 49 families attended this meeting. And at this meeting, Deepwell also surveyed the residents to see how many were living there, the conditions of their mobile homes, if they need assistance, and if they plan to stay on the island. And I can tell you 22 of those surveys were from rollers, with 8 of those mobile homes being in very poor condition and likely not able to be moved. Deepwell is also collecting additional information at this time from the families to see what kind of employment they have, to see what part of our workforce will be impacted. And at this point, there are housekeeping, hotel, construction, painting, landscaping, and restaurant are the main workforce that we have in these residential areas. So we had a similar situation with a project off of Spanish Wells and Bryant Road in 2019, where again, manufactured homes have to be relocated for a redevelopment of a property, and Deepwell assisted with this. And it was less homes. There was only 15 homes, and they were all fairly new and were able to be moved. Half of the 15 stayed on the island, and the other half located off island. And in the memo, I did include costs that Deepwell was able to gather for the relocation of these homes. It's not just the cost of the relocation. They have to store their belongings, disconnect their utilities and reconnect them. They've got to take down their stairwells for their ingress and egress and rebuild those. And they also have to stay in temporary housing, likely a hotel, until they can occupy the home in the new location. And those are all substantial costs that the families will have to bear. There's also costs relative to town and county impact fees, as well as sewer and water connection and capacity fees. Now, these are typically borne by the property owner, but in some situations, they do try to pass those on to people who will be occupying the property. There are programs in place that will help with the water and sewer connections as well as impact fees, but those are for owners of property only, not renters. So there would not be programs available for these families at this time outside of what Deepwell can offer. And so since the meeting on September 13th, we've received many calls and emails from both property owners that are offering up their land to relocate these homes, as well as some of the people who live on within the property that are asking for help and what their options are. And at this point, as of today, I've talked to 19 property owners who have property on the island that are willing to make it available for use for the relocation of homes. The problem that we're running into is a lot of these property owners don't have the funding to complete the infrastructure. They have to put in the vehicular access as well as connecting to water and sewer. A lot of these properties are vacant raw land that are still treed. So we have an obstacle with that when it comes to trying to find a place to put these homes on. I've talked to 4 property owners that have partial, if not fully, funding capacity to put in the infrastructure to locate properties, but they're just in the beginning phases. So that's going to take some time to get them up and ready and through the approval process and the infrastructure in place. Staff did reach out to 3 other trailer parks on the island to see if there was any space available. And at this time, there are no spaces available at the locations that we reached out to. So some possible things to consider for assistance the town could possibly look at for this large scale development would be to waive any building permit or impact fees related to the relocation of these homes. Investigate the possibility of using some of the American Rescue funds to install the water and sewer infrastructure or to remove manufactured homes that can't be moved, and provide permitting and design assistance to property owners for small residential development. So right at this point, the property is still under contract, and I'm told that the work is being done to design a redevelopment that would be consistent for the by right use of 109 units on the property. They hope to submit a pre-application to the town in the next couple of weeks with the hope to have a full development approval in about 6 months. If the sale does happen to fall through, Dr. Singh does intend to redevelop the property on his own, but at this point has no staff on board to look at the design or permitting. So he says it will be a year or more if the sale falls through that he would be developing the property. And so at this point, staff's going to continue to work with Deepwell and the Low Country Immigration Coalition to provide information to the area residents, and we'll continue to work with any property owners who reach out to us that have land available that could possibly relocate these homes to. And that's all I have at this time.
Sorry, thank you, Jamie. Had some technical difficulty there for a second. Okay, well, thank you for the update.
Yes, Mr. Brown.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Jamie, for bringing us this information. I got a couple of questions for you, Jamie. Of the, I guess, 19 property owners that have come forward saying that they would be able to rent their property. Do we have any idea of the current zoning of those properties? Just, I don't need the detail of each one, just the
They,
example.
almost all of them are RM4.
Okay, thank you. I really wanted to pose a question to council here, just to get a reaction, if we don't mind. Staff is coming to us with a recommendation to potentially use some of their American Rescue Plan funding to help with infrastructure. And the last time I checked, we don't have any affordable housing developers knocking on our door ready to do projects. And here we're faced with close to 50 homes that have been identified as workforce housing that we could potentially lose. And from what history told us the last time, when there were only 15 units, we lost half of them, right?
Just an option, not a recommendation.
I think this is an opportunity for us. Jamie's laid out some cost here, but I think us asking the town manager to take a little deeper dive as to what's really needed from a financial standpoint, I think is worthy. We've made the commitment that we want to sustain affordable housing on Hilton Head, and here's an opportunity for us to do it. I know that there's currently no plans because of the rezoning being snatched, and the majority owner not having anything in the permitting cycle. But for us to develop criteria as to how we would release funding, how much funding, all that stuff takes work and conversation amongst us. I'm just, I guess at this point, looking to see if there's any interest amongst our council to go in that direction.
There we go.
Mr. Brown, I thought it was a suggestion rather than a recommendation. I thought Jamie came out with a whole load of suggestions rather than a firm recommendation from staff. I mean, what I would suggest, and I'll talk to Mark, is that we refer this to one of our committees and come out of the committee with some kind of recommendation.
That would be great, Mr. Mayor. I think we need to further the dialogue, yes.
I'll take care of that, thank you. Any other questions for Jamie? Thank you very much, Jamie, appreciate it. Okay, anything else, Mr. Lando?
No, sir.
Moving on to general reports by council members. I have two to start with. I got a couple of calls this week that said people that call in are limited to 3 minutes per person, and yet council people don't have any restrictions on time. Well, I'm back and I pulled out the ordinance here. Council members are limited to 10 minutes to speak. Where residents have 3, council members have 10. I'm hereby informing Krista that when a council member gets to 9.5 minutes, that she let them know they're close to the 10-minute mark. Well, we'll go that because, you know. The other thing is that I think it's very inappropriate for any council member to accuse the council or individual members of the council of racism. I think it causes nothing but us but trouble. I mean, the word is bad, the word is misunderstood, but there is an issue we should discuss. But I don't think we should do our laundry in the paper. And I wish we wouldn't go that route again. And with that, we'll go to reports. Mr. Stanford on flats.
We had no meeting and I have no report, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Ms. Becker on Council of Governments.
We had no meeting to report on, although I did want to go back to general reports and mention that I had the opportunity to present the proclamation on behalf of you, Mayor, and the town of Hilton Head at the 9th annual Latin Festival, celebrating the Latin Heritage Month. And it was well attended. Your proclamation was well received. A good time was had by all. And I recommend strongly to those who didn't attend this year that they put it on their calendars to attend next year. In addition, I had the privilege of stopping by and watching a pickleball tournament over at the Palmetto Dunes Pickleball Courts, also extremely well attended. And I can see why we have such an enthusiastic group who are very excited about the prospects and encouraging us to develop a pickleball facility here within the town of Hilton Head. A lot of fun. And those are my two reports on those topics. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for delivering the proclamation on Sunday. Second of all, the pickleball tournament out of Palmetto Dunes this week was broadcast nationwide on ESPN. So that was a nationwide ESPN program broadcast out over the weekend. Are there any other general reports before I skipped over by accident? Alex, can't see with your hand there.
Sure, no worries. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Not a general report. I was looking for you to, based on the conversation that you and I had, to pose the question to the council at our next council meeting, which is today, in regards to us as a council participating in diversity training. Are you still planning on doing that, or are we going to pick that up at another time?
We'll pick it up another time, but I think that we should have some conversation among ourselves about what you and me talked about. I'm not sure what the format should be, and I like to run that through council before we do it, but the subject just can't disappear, Alex.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Lennox, on to Loco.
There was no October meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Ames on the airport.
I have no report.
You know, it's funny, David, I was gonna call you the other day. I had the 701 flight out of Hilton that goes over my house every morning. That's okay. But at 706, I had 6 flights over my house, I thought. And they kept on coming and coming and coming. And I said, they're evacuating the airport. Something's wrong here. Well, then I found out later on in the day, that was the mosquito spraying. There was no real need.
200 feet, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Hawkins on community services and public study. Bill, you're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to bring to the attention of council that we'll be having our next meeting on Monday at 9 o'clock. One item on the agenda will be a discussion about issues in access and use at Islanders Beach. I think we've all heard what I think are some very legitimate concerns, and I anticipate a lively discussion that may lead to some new direction on behalf of our residents. Also, we will do later an executive session, entertain a motion to consider a new addition to the Parks and Recreation Commission. And also at our last meeting, we were advancing support for the direction that's outlined in 11A, the Main Street right-of-way acquisition. So I'd like to hold my comments to then. And that's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Lennox, the Finance Committee.
Yes, the Finance Committee met earlier today and had 2 items under new business. The first was an update from Ahmad Ward on the business and master plans for Mitchellville Freedom Park. And based on Ahmad's comments, Mitchellville has survived the economic effects of the pandemic and has really regained the momentum it had before COVID. It was a good report. The second report was from John Troyer on the first 3 months ending 9/30 of this year of our fiscal 2022 finances. Another good report, and there were no unfavorable variances or trends of any significance. So the positive trends are continuing through the end of September.
Thank you. Mr. Ames on public planning.
Yes, thank you very much. There are two important topics that I wanted to bring to the attention of council and also the public. We have engaged a consultant to help us create a short-term rental ordinance, but the Public Planning Committee recognizes that there are a huge diversity of opinions of what should happen in that ordinance. And I'm encouraging anyone in the public who has an opinion about that to seek out a focus group that are being scheduled and participate in offering your opinions of what should or what should not go in that ordinance. And then secondly, the Public Planning Committee will meet next Thursday and hear a schedule for the beach parking master plan. That's another important subject, and I think the town is well served to push that one forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Just two small things that, one, I promised David about 2-3 weeks ago that I would have a report or a discussion today on bringing the council back to live in the chambers. And the reason we didn't do that today, I'm waiting for the town to give me a update on where we are from a safety procedure on securing and everything for the chamber. I expect to have that in the next 10 days. So we will talk again on our next meeting. I think the virus is one concern, public safety is another concern. So I didn't forget about that day. We'll have it on our next meeting, okay? The other thing is appearance by citizens today. We are broken into two groups. Anybody that wanted to talk on Main Street will be able to talk right after Main Street. Anybody that wants to talk on anything other than Main Street will talk right now. Tricia, it's yours.
Yes, sir. Excuse me. As has been the case with our virtual meetings, we offer citizens the opportunity to sign up to speak and address council. That closed today at 2 p.m. as well as our open town hall, which generates a report that's submitted to town council prior to the meeting. That also closed today at 2 p.m. and was provided to council and will be made part of the public record. Today, under appearance by citizens, I have one citizen signed up to speak. Karen Bittman should be on the line. Ms. Bittman? Ms. Bittman, are you on the line to speak?
Krista, Ms. Bittman is on the line, but she is not unmuting for whatever reason.
Okay, Mayor McCann, that is my only person I have signed up to speak under appearance by citizens.
Okay. Good, thank you very much. New business, consideration of resolution for the Main Street right-of-way acquisition. Motion to, Mr. Hawkins, motions and second.
Yes, Mayor, I would like to move this motion with an amendment. So let me clarify. I'm accepting the motion as written with the addition of the following. Also agreeing to accept the remainder of Meeting Street right-of-way on the same terms.
I could then, Bill, that if the Church of Latter-day Saints wants to join in and expand this, they can just apply for that, right?
Well, we have several involved parties on the street. We have the North Island Baptist Church, we have All Saints Episcopal, we have the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we have the Congregation Beth Yam, the synagogue at the end of the street. And so these are the affected parties. And what we're saying very simply is that in terms of the Main Street, in terms of this motion, we're saying that this street should be dealt with on the same terms as Main Street, period. I've talked to council on this, and the wording I'm using here has been screened by our council.
Thank you, Bill. Curtis?
If I may, Mr. Harkins, I think what you have to do is I think someone has to move to adopt the motion, get a second on that, open it for conversation, then make your motion to amend once it's already on the floor.
Okay, thank you for that advice. Then I would move to adopt the motion as written.
Linux seconds it. And now Curtis, Bill, go back and make it.
And now you can open it for discussion if you want to offer. And then, Mr. Harkins, just prior to the meeting, I sent a proposal to revise that around to you, to the manager, and to Ms. Wiedmeyer. I think the easiest way to do it is that if you wish to have all of Meeting Street included in this, there are two places in the motion, one being the second whereas clause, and then Article B of the main body of the motion. I think in order to accomplish what you seek to have in your revision, what you would propose to do is to remove the words "a portion of" that appear just before Meeting Street. I think that makes it a lot neater, if that's what you're seeking.
Right. So if you would be so kind then to join your thoughts together with with language that we can use for a motion, I'd appreciate it.
If you wish that, then your motion should be to amend the resolution that is before council by removing the words "a portion of" that appear just prior to the words Meeting Street in the second whereas clause and in Article B of the main body of the motion. With that amendment, the main body of the motion would read, "The road owner shall provide the town with title to the private rights of way consisting of Main Street from Whooping Crane Way to Wilburn Road, Central Avenue, Museum Street, Merchant Street, and Meeting Street, as shown on Exhibit A in such manner and sufficiency as may be determined by the town attorney to accomplish such objective," period. That removes the text that makes it only a portion of Meeting Street and has you accepting the rights of way for all of the roadways within the Main Street commercial area without any deletion for anything, if that's what
Right. Then
you intend here.
at the pleasure of the mayor, I would move the language that our council has shared to be moved as an amended motion.
Second.
What are we doing now?
If there's any discussion.
Is there any discussion on that? Yes, Mr. Stanford.
Thank you, Mayor. I think so the public can understand what's going on here, it would be useful for Jeff to give his report, and particularly to show that map, to show which parts of Meeting Street are owned by the merchants and which parts are separately, I guess, owned by the churches. Thank you.
Jeff?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, and members of council. Yes, I'd be glad to go through a presentation here if I can share my screen. Let me see. Whoops. I did not mean to do that. Can everyone see my screen?
No.
I apologize. Let me, how about now?
Nope.
Let me try one more time.
You got it?
You got it now?
Yes.
All right. Apologize for that. Yeah, this is similar to the presentation done for the committee last week. What I'll go through here is how we got to this point to date, what is being offered. The Main Street Commercial Property Owners Association had offered a public dedication of rights of way for the following streets: Central Avenue, Meeting Street, a portion thereof, I'll get to that later in the presentation, Merchant Street, Museum Street, and Main Street, running from Whooping Crane Way up to Wilborn Road. What you see here is a plat of the streets being offered by the Main Street Commercial Owners Association. You have a contiguous right-of-way of all these streets. You have Main Street from Whooping Crane Way, which is owned by the Hilton Head Plantation Property Owners Association. It runs all the way up into Wilborn Road, which is owned and maintained by SCDOT. You have Museum Street connecting to William Hilton Parkway, Central Avenue, and Merchant Street. And up here on the left, you have a portion of Meeting Street. It's only a portion because when this subdivision was developed, the owners of that subdivision ran the road up about 200 feet and capped off that right-of-way. So that is what was being dedicated by the current POA. I have a map here showing the roadway connectivity network. This is important to understand the hierarchy of ownership and how these roads interconnect. The orange roads are owned and maintained by SCDOT. The blue roads are owned and maintained by Beaufort County. The lime green roads are owned and maintained by the town. You can see we have Hospital Center Boulevard and the other portion of Main Street. And the red roads are all privately owned and maintained. You'll see Meeting Street here. It does extend to a dead end, and it serves other parcels beyond that 200 feet. I've got some photos of, these are failures in the road system. I'm sure everyone that's driven down the road has seen some of these. You have root upheaval from mostly pine trees too close to the edge of the road. And over time, the roots have grown and swollen and heaved up the pavement in certain areas. We have pavement failures, probably due to a bad base or proper compaction, alligator cracking, other potholes. We have subsidence, maybe some settlement and failures at structures, catch basins, drainage inlets, where there may be a void in a pipe connection to the box and it's infiltrating dirt, and thus the pavement sinks over time. More of the same, some broken curbing. The POA has committed to patching all of the existing potholes. That's something that's going to be done before the roads are given to us. And once the roads are ours, then we will take over maintenance from that point on. Councilperson Becker had some questions at the committee meeting that we were unable to answer at that time. One of the questions, these were all related to the POA, but one of the questions was how many members are there in the POA? There are 39 property owners that are members of the Main Street POA. She asked if that was a requirement of those owners, and I understand that yes, by the covenants and restrictions, membership is mandatory. And then there was a question about the funds reserved for road maintenance. The POA is going to transfer all of the funds in that account, $190,299.43, to the town as part of this transfer of rights of way. As I said, the POA must repair any potholes, active potholes right now on the road. Once we get the rights of way and we get the funds, we will go out and make another assessment and take over maintenance at that point. Future capital costs. Shouldn't just say cost. I mean, there's some exciting projects in the works in our future, which is one of the reasons I think it's good to take these roads over into the public network. We have $100,000 programmed in this year's CIP. These funds are for soft cost, which will go towards legal acquisition costs, surveying and design of future improvements. The improvements, we'll have to do roadway resurfacing, of course, some reconstruction. We'll get rid of the root damage, any pavement failures. A new pathway system. There are some old remnant sidewalks on segments of the road, Main Street now, but we will create a new pathway network and streetscaping as a future CIP. We're estimating this to be $2.5 to $3 million. One of the elements of that CIP we think will be fruitful will be a proposed roundabout up at the Wilborn end. If anyone's been up there during school take-in or take-out periods, 8 o'clock, 3 o'clock, let's say, you see how things can get quite congested there. The storm drainage systems, we have investigated a lot of those. This is kind of a worst case scenario. If those pipes had to be lined in place, let's say there were too many voids along the joints, et cetera, that could be up to 1.4 million. Hopefully it will not be, and that is just a worst case estimate. A very important part of this transaction will be that the owner also grants 10-foot utility easements that are adjacent to these rights of way. Just the rights of way by themselves would not afford us enough room to build the pathway network we want to build. And there may be drainage needs in the future where we need to get outside of that right of way a little bit. So right now, the owners of those rights of way possess a 10-foot utility easement. And one of the rights within that utility easement is to build sidewalks, pathways, storm drainage improvements, et cetera. So very important that we get those rights along with the rights of way themselves. All right, I'm going back to the original plat that was submitted by the POA. And up here you see Meeting Street. And you can see the original subdivision lines of all these lots. And that's how things were recorded back when this commercial subdivision was being developed. Here's the original plans. You see Main Street. This is from 1986. Here's the drainage canal from Hilton Head Plantation down towards William Hilton Parkway. And the developer built 200 feet of road and capped it off right there. At a future date, the road was further extended and these lands back here were developed. So as Mr. Stanford had mentioned, you have North Island Baptist Fellowship here on the corner. You have Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Adjacent to them, All Saints Episcopal Church and the Congregation Beth Yan. The POA came to the town and they were only offering dedication of what they owned. So that is why the original plat only showed that first 200 feet. Over the last few days, Ed Hughes of Nexon Pruitt, who is representing the POA, he's an attorney, he has had title abstractors looking in to find who owns this. As of today before the meeting, it was indeterminate. The title goes blank after the late 90s. So we're still endeavoring to find out who that is. But regardless, I think the town would be in a good position to accept the dedication of the entire street. And then the attorneys will figure out what means and methods need to be done to make that happen. I had a recommendation here. I know Mr. Harkins and Curtis have already provided the motion, but the basic recommendation today was to accept the dedication of the road rights of way and the utility easements with a lump sum payment of $190,299.43 from the Main Street Property Owners Association, and to further accept the remainder of Meeting Street right of way based on those same terms. That's all I have for now. And I have Ed Hughes on the line. I think we can kick it over to him. He represents the Main Street Property Owners Association, and he may.
I think we're okay, Jeff. No. Right. Okay. Where's Curtis?
If I could ask Jeff, please stop sharing your screen, Jeff. There you go. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Curtis? What do you want to slow down?
Any questions?
Are there any questions from Jeff's presentation?
No, I have none. We do have to sort out exactly the best way to make sure that the conveyance gets everything. There's, in my view, an open question about some of that, but I don't think it's anything that we can't get sorted out. Depending on what and I have not yet seen it, depending on what the actual status is with respect to the extended part of Meeting Street, there may be some additional work required to ultimately clean up the title to that. I think all of the roadway that is paved and in active use is probably going to be fine, and nothing else will be needed. There may be some questions about the extension of Meeting Street, but insofar as if the will of council is to accept these roads, I believe that the proposed amended ordinance from Mr. Harkins will get us on the way toward doing that, and then we will move forward to sort out the conveyance documents and how to get that actually accomplished.
Thank you. Ms. Becker?
Thank you, Curtis, and thank you, Jeff, for two things, for the great presentation, but also for answering my questions. I appreciate that. I think Curtis answered a lot of what was on my mind. If we don't know who owns that land, I'm all for including the entire Meeting Street. I guess the question that sits in my head is, who are we accepting the dedication from? And how might that at some later time cause a potential problem or cost? And I'm usually pretty shy about putting myself in a position saying yes to something without knowing the answers. So there you are. That's my question, if that was a question.
David?
Yeah, I'm glad Ms. Becker said what she said, because I'm very sympathetic both to the original motion and the expanded motion, but I'm a little bit concerned about the timing of the request and our action today. Jeff, have you done the same level of investigation and cost estimating on the additional Meeting Street pavement and drainage and subbase and condition of the pavement, so on?
Mr. Ames, it is about 500 feet more of roadway that we're talking about here. The initial stub being offered was about 200 feet. No, we did not directly go out and assess that, but I went out there Saturday and looked at it. The pavement on the rear portion is better than the pavement up front, frankly. So I don't think it would add material cost to our maintenance needs going forward.
Yeah, I'm not troubled at all with the end result. I'm looking at a procedural matter with the way we're doing business, and I would be much more comfortable having the title issue taken care of, and Jeff, the staff, being able to say the level of analysis on the additional 500 feet equals what we have done up to this point. I'm ready to vote on it at that point. Thank you, Mayor.
Lennox?
There we go. Sorry, you're on mute.
Ms. Lennox?
Thank you. Jeff, who has been maintaining Meeting Street all along?
You know, I was asked that question by some of the religious institutions when I was asking them if they knew who owned the street, and they said no, and they were asking me who maintained it. I was speaking with Ed Hughes. He said most likely the POA was just maintaining it.
Have the churches formed their own POA?
Not to my knowledge.
So there is no additional POA involved in the transaction, just the Main Street POA consisting of 39 property owners.
Correct, that is my understanding.
And the 4 churches are not part of that POA?
Churches are part of the POA.
Yes, they are. The 4 churches are part of the Main Street POA.
Okay, so they are 4 of 39.
Correct.
Thanks, Ed. That's all I wanted to be sure of. Thank you.
Are there any other questions, comments? Mr. Stanford?
Thank you. There's great concern among these religious organizations about this action. And I would like to ease their concerns by approving this motion today, which says we will accept the dedication being offered by the POA of all of the roads, including the first 200 feet of Meeting Street, plus the town is willing to accept the dedication of the remainder of the right-of-way of Meeting Street upon resolution of title issues. I think that will ease a lot of the concerns of these organizations. I don't see, based on what I've heard here, a great risk to the town there, but I would like to keep our neighbors comfortable if we possibly can. Thank you.
If there are no other questions, Christie, we take the vote?
Certainly, sir. Mayor McCann?
Yes.
Excuse me, Mayor. I think that Glenn was making a suggestion and we didn't respond to it. I would be comfortable voting in the affirmative with that change.
I too agree with that.
Bill? Bill, mute.
Yes, I would like to re-amend my motion to accept the direction set forth by our colleague Glenn Stanford.
With the original.
Second, I second.
Okay, any other questions on that? Gotta prove the move. Gotta prove everybody we want. No.
I believe so.
I asked you a question. Mr. Bradley, could we get all the property we want? Yes. Okay, sorry.
If I could ask Mr. Stanford to restate that so we make sure that we've got it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I said, but what I was attempting to say is that, and the town would be willing to accept the remainder of the right-of-way of Meeting Street upon dedication and clearing title to that property.
We okay? Let's do it.
Sir, we still have people on the line for appearance by citizens for this matter. Public comment.
Okay, go ahead.
Sir, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Who's gonna speak at time? Nobody. Let's go to the citizens.
I'm getting internet disruption here.
The first person I have on the line is Peter Christian. Mr. Christian.
Mr. Christian.
Next, he's on mute. Mr. Christian's on mute.
Mr. Christian.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. This is Peter Christian, the General Manager of Hilton Head Plantation. I am very much in support, and the board is very much in support, and our community is very much in support of this turnover. As with many large-scale communities, when a developer parcels off, the original developer owned all the land, and oftentimes in piecemeal, the land is turned over to appropriate others. And in this case, it was turned over, some of it to Hilton Head Plantation and some of it to the Main Street Merchant Association. And by some oversight, I'm sure, through the Hilton Head Plantation Company and then Melrose, then Rose Mel, some piece of title was lost. And we're very much in favor of having our neighbors on Meeting Street included in this. And Mr. Stanford and Mr. Harkins very much encapsulated that in their motion. This turnover has been in the works for over 10 years, and it is obviously long overdue. There is very much a public good to having that road turned over to the town. It serves as a thoroughfare for many, including the majority of the youngsters who go to the Hilton Head Island campus, as a pedestrian roadway and a cycle pathway to the Hilton Head school campus. Presently, there is not a safe way to travel down Main Street for pedestrians because, as mentioned, that sidewalk and that pathway is not present. And Hilton Head Plantation would be very interested in working with the town once this turnover has been accomplished to connect a pathway from their main gate to a path that the town would establish to provide a safe access for pedestrians and cyclists to go from Hilton Head Plantation to the school campus. Once again, very much in favor of this. This has been on the town council's agenda and the planning commission's agenda for over a decade. And I am very, very pleased, and the people of Hilton Head Plantation are very pleased to see it finally moving forward. And it should move forward in its totality with the caveats so noted. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Christian. Joel Green.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead,
All right,
please.
thank you. My name is Joel Green, First Vice President of the Congregation Beth Yam Synagogue in Hilton Head. I'm also a resident of the Hilton Head Plantation. I want to thank the mayor, members of the town council, and Mr. Orlando for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the acquisition of the Main Street right of way. Congregation Beth Yam is located on Meeting Street, which is a little spur street off of Main Street. We have approximately 400 members in our congregation. In addition, the Unity Church uses our facility for meetings as well as for religious services. There are actually 4 houses of worship, as you know, located along the Meeting Street Way, which includes the All Saints Episcopal Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and the North Island Baptist Church, and of course, Beth Yam Synagogue. In essence, Meeting Street acts as a center of worship for many people. In addition, there's a daycare center for children at the Episcopal Church that is constantly being used. We and the churches also have religious schools that meet each week. Many events are also held here. Last weekend, for example, the concert truck brought live music to the CBY parking lot, and this event was open to all residents of Hilton Head. Suffice it to say, it's important for all of Meeting Street to be included in your right-of-way plans for Main Street, and we appreciate the vote that you just considered. You know, we talk about infrastructure a lot in this country, but often little is done. Perhaps infrastructure is best addressed at the local level, where its economic importance to the town can be appreciated as an investment for the present and for the future. The community that is served by Main Street is important to Hilton Head Island in terms of its size, location, and economic contribution to the town. I think most people will agree that Main Street reflects its own special charm and character, commercial and residential attractiveness, and economic vitality. We believe that acquiring the Main Street right-of-way, including Meeting Street, is a positive economic decision that will benefit the Main Street area as well as the entire Hilton Head community. On behalf of Beth Yam Synagogue, we applaud the town council for having the vision and insight by considering this important topic and for allowing us to express our support of the Main Street right-of-way resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Judy Bluestone. Ms. Bluestone.
Hi, good afternoon, Mayor McCann and council members. My name is Judy Bluestone and I reside in Hilton Head Plantation in Ward 2, represented by Mr. Harkins, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm the immediate past president of the board of Congregation Beth Yam. I too was really delighted to read that the town council was to review and vote on a resolution for the town to acquire and maintain Main Street and the intersecting streets along the way to Wilbourn. We appreciate the town's interest in doing so, as the traffic on Main Street has increased dramatically and the street has been in constant need of attention. And frankly, it is dangerous. However, I was distressed to read that not all of Meeting Street was covered by the resolution, and in fact, the proposed acquisition clearly omits the portion of Meeting Street on which my Jewish congregation, Beth Yam, sits. I was understandably dismayed, for Congregation Beth Yam has owned and maintained its property at 4801 Meeting Street for at least 30 years. Our vibrant congregation, its rabbis and members have been active and contributing members to the fabric of the town of Hilton Head, and through its activities has demonstrated the values by which we are taught to live, tikkun olam, making the world a better place by taking care of one another. Our list of achievements is long, but I'll mention a few. We were one of the founding members of Deep Well, to which our members contribute food regularly. We're active participants in MLK activities. We were founder of Backpack Buddies. We give scholarships to young people in graduates who are graduating from public high schools who demonstrate their commitment to social justice. And we were the founder of the Low Country Coalition Against Hate when a Holocaust-denying candidate ran for mayor in 2018. Our members sit on town committees and boards. This is merely a sample of our commitment to this community. We're a busy faith community with a considerable usage of our property. We often partner with our neighbors on Meeting Street, All Saints Episcopal Church and the Church of the Latter-day Saints, with whom we share mutual respect and cooperation. I'm sure you can understand that the omission of the roadway accessing us on Meeting Street in your resolutions was extremely disturbing, and I urge you to support the amendment, which is inclusive of the whole of Meeting Street. Thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Bluestone. Pamela June, Ms. June.
You hear it?
Yeah.
Pamela.
Ms. June.
Hello, my name is Pamela June, and I'm president of the Main Street Property Owners Association. I've owned property on Main Street for 3 years, and my company, June and Associates, has served our community for 16 years. I appreciate the intense town staff research regarding this issue and their dedication to working with us. On behalf of the association, we are encouraging you to accept the amended motion today to move forward with town ownership of Main Street and the full extent of Meeting Street. For over a decade now, Main Street has been utilized as a public road, and the infrastructure and finances dedicated cannot continue to be supported by a private commercial owners association. We look forward to seeing what a true Main Street can look like with continued partnership with the town, connecting our community and creating safe and beautiful spaces. In the interest of the overall quality of life, the safety of students, the need for hospital access, faith-based communities, and the benefit of the North End businesses and Hilton Head Plantation residents, I encourage you to support the staff report as presented. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. June. And finally, Ms. Rath, Heather Rath.
Krista, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council. My name is Heather Rath, and I'm a consultant who has been working with the Main Street Commercial Owners Association exclusively on roadway acquisition. Today, I'm encouraging you to vote to accept both Main Street and the full length of Meeting Street into the town network. A little bit of a background. This is a project that has been important to me since my son began attending Hilton Head Island Elementary School in 2017, nearly 5 years ago. When I started working with the association in 2019, we gained traction with council and staff, but then of course COVID hit. I am grateful that when Mark Orlando came online, he understood, along with members of council, how important this asset was to the town. For us as a town to have a safe and secure road for people living in Hilton Head Plantation, for children to safely go to and from the school campus, for the business community and the faith community, and of course to serve as an offshoot of William Hilton Parkway. In addition, revitalizing Main Street through the multi-use road network is essential to accomplishing many pillars found in our plan. This isn't just about a road, although we are talking about a road. It's really about a vision for what a Main Street can be for our island and how it can serve the people of our island. Your town manager, Mark Orlando, gets this. Last Friday, it was brought to my attention that a portion of Meeting Street was not owned by the COA. I quickly went into action to try and track down ownership with Ed Hughes and Jeff Bucklew. I have spoken with multiple faith-based community leaders and board members to resolve this issue. Your town staff, including Jeff Buckaloo and Mark Orlando, have been incredibly responsive. And just this afternoon, around 2:30 p.m., Jane Joseph, the former president of Congregation Beth Yam, found a treasure trove of documentation leading to an LLC located in Tennessee that was stored in the attic at the congregation. And we will happily bring this to town staff following a positive policy vote today. So again, I encourage you to vote to accept both Main Street and the full length of Meeting Street into the town network. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Rapp. Sir, that concludes the appearance by citizens.
Thank you. You take the roll call for,
I certainly will, sir. Mayor McCann
yes.
and Mr. Harkins,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Support.
Mr. Ames,
Yes.
Mrs. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Lennox,
Yes.
and Mr. Stanford.
Yes, if you can hear me.
I can hear you, sir. Thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very much. Mr. Orlando, do we need an executive session?
Yes, we do, sir.
I have a motion to go into executive session.
Go. So moved.
Good,
Second.
good. All in favor, raise the right hand. Thank you very much. We'll take a break now. We are coming out of executive session with one item to report. Mr. Hawkins,
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move that we appoint Michael Manasotis to fill the vacant seat on the Parks and Recreation Committee to complete the term ending June 30, 2024.
Second.
any discussion on that? All those in favor, please raise their right hand. Good.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to adjourn now?
So moved.
Second? Good. All in favor, raise the right hand. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you, everybody.